the future of continuing education marketing, and we are very pleased to have Kim Albee of Genoo with us today. And my name is Chris Murphy, and I'm with Augisoft. And for those who may be new to Augisoft, we develop a software tool called Lumens, which is an enrollment management system for the continuing education industry. And today's webinar is being brought to you by Augisoft. And as I said, we're very happy to have Kim Albee of Genoo with us here today. And Kim is owner and founder of a company that provides online marketing, and she'll be telling you a lot more about that, plus some other things here soon. But before we get started, I just wanted to run through just a couple of real basic webinar guidelines. We actually a lot of times ask polling questions throughout our webinars, but today we are not going to be doing polling questions per se. But if you've got any questions, we really would like you to send those in through the questions box on the toolbar, and then we're going to leave some time at the end to get to all your questions, and Kim will be happy to address anything that you might have regarding marketing or anything of that nature. So feel free to send in whatever questions you have through that mechanism. And then also we just remind people, if you do need to step away, to not put the call on hold, that it's actually better just to sign out and then sign back in, as that seems to work a little bit better for the GoToWebinar system. So with that, I think we're ready to begin, and I'm going to turn things over to Kim. So Kim, welcome.
All right. Thank you so much, Chris, and welcome everybody. It's really great to be here with you today, and I'm excited about what we're going to be talking about. Before we get going, I just want to give you an overview about Genoo. Who is Genoo? And Genoo provides a really comprehensive yet affordable marketing automation and web marketing system for small businesses and CE organizations with real-time integration to the Lumens CE registration and management system. So that's something that I want to highlight, because we bring professional marketing expertise to Lumens customers and help them elevate their marketing results and effectiveness. And at the end of today, we're going to be talking specifically about how you can engage in the packages that we've put together with Lumens and with Augisoft specifically for you guys. Also, let's just look at this, the agenda. We have a white paper that we wrote called The Future of CE Marketing. And that, I'm going to give you a link to download that at the end of this webinar. And this webinar is going to cover pieces of that white paper, but the white paper is going to go into more detail. So I really recommend that you download that at the end to get the full picture, okay? And again, I want to highlight, if you have any questions that come up as we go through, as I go through all this stuff, submit them in to Chris, because what we'll have is a really good conversation, and we have a lot of time for a really great conversation as well. So here's what we're going to cover today. We're going to be talking about the changing continuing education landscape. And then what's interesting is at the same time that's changing fairly dramatically, we also have a changing marketing landscape. And so we're going to be talking about that. And that sets up for, you know, what do you really need? What addresses those two things in a great way? And so we're going to introduce the Agile marketing mindset and the three components of that have to be juggled and managed within that framework. We're going to talk a lot about data and tracking and having that be integrated and the benefits of that. And then content. I think the biggest question people have today and the biggest challenge facing most marketers in almost any size organization today is content, because it's a whole new world out there in terms of the way that you have to come at your content. And then we're going to talk about what's your next step, and then we're going to open it up for questions, and that'll be our webinar. So let's jump in. Learn predicts that only 25% of continuing education and lifelong learning programs are effectively positioned to survive the next decade. That's pretty amazing, isn't it? Well, let's look at some of those factors. Competition is increasing. And it's not just other continuing education organizations that you compete with. The internet levels the playing field for savvy information marketers who have domain expertise in a subject. And these guys are savvy about things on the internet. They know how to market, they know how to get audiences, and you compete with them in many ways. You also compete with professional services firms who are thought leaders and putting together their own courses, programs, and conferences for the industries that they serve. And again, they're also really starting to wrap their arms around the internet and how to get that message out there, because the internet has just had that sort of an impact. You know, and you can read about that. I think we have a quote in the white paper from Nine Shift, the book that was that's available from the founders of Learn, that really does talk about how the internet is fundamentally changing the way we live, the way we interact, and what we do on a daily basis. So that doesn't come as a surprise to any of you guys, I'm sure, but it really does have implications. On top of all of that, your funding's being reduced. Now, right now, we're experiencing the largest education funding cuts ever. The Department of Education has to reduce funding by $2.5 billion in 2013 alone, just from those sequestration cuts. And the grants are not as plentiful, and CE budgets are being reduced. And so you've got that challenge as well. So not only most of the CE organizations that I talk to operate like a small business. They might have, if they have a dedicated marketer, maybe they only have 1 or 2 people. And then many don't even have a dedicated marketer, and they can have fairly large CE programs. So then how do you really juggle all the hats and keep all the balls in the air and get what you need to get done? So that's a challenge. But here's a really cool deal, is the interest in continuing education is strong. It's increasing. The demand is increasing, in part, I think, because of the baby boom generation. It's that big bubble that's going through the population. And they want to continue to learn. They're the first group to attend college in any sort of great number. And so they're 10,000 a day. Baby boomers are reaching retirement age, 10,000 a day. So they want to continue to learn. So we're starting to see that happen, as well as some other factors. But that interest in continuing ed is strong. So taking a look at the marketing landscape and the shift there, look, we have more choices and channels available to us than ever before. But the truth is you can't explore all of them. And if you try, you're just going to dilute the effectiveness that you can get or that might be available. So you really have got to start to look at, you know, what can you do and what should you do? Because what you could try is literally endless. And new options are getting developed all the time. So what I hear on a daily basis when I talk to people is the chaos and confusion about, well, what should I really do here? And I've done a webinar that really, this is where this, I pulled this particular diagram from another set of webinars that I've done, but I wanted to pull it in here because literally you have all these choices. And it's especially hard for smaller marketing departments who need to be effective with very little resources. So Demand-Based did a survey and asked people what their top sources of leads, what their top sources of results have been. And this is what they said: 23% on website and landing pages, 14% email marketing was their best choice, 7% some sort of advertising, whether that's AdWords or banner advertising, and 3% in social media. So as you see, you know, what does that all mean? And I could say, well, have you paid attention to your website lately? Does it engage your target audience in a way that motivates them for action? Is it engaging? And I'm talking about modern website design, modern and including calls to action that actually have people take a step forward. And again, what I'm pointing to more than ever is content. And we'll get back to that and we'll reiterate that as we go through. But email marketing continues to be the workhorse of your return on investment. Yet email newsletters and the batch and blast approach, that is sending the same email to everyone on your list or close to that, is losing its efficacy. People are tuning you out. People are getting so many email messages now that if it isn't something that they're interested in an area they're interested in, they're going to hit that delete key. And I don't know about anyone on this call, but I know that I get literally hundreds of email messages a day. And if they aren't interesting, if it's not somebody I know that's sending me an email, so I scan for that, right? If it's something that is just high level or I'm busy, it gives me great pleasure to hit that delete key because at least I feel like I'm getting something accomplished, right? So you want to be able to know that your messages are landing But the key area where marketing automation and marketing tools can really help smaller marketing departments is in better segmenting communications to your core audiences. Okay, so you'll also notice over here on social media, if we look over here, you'll notice that social media has a less direct impact on your results. Now, here's what's interesting. I work with a client here. They're a customer of Genoo's, and they don't have much search engine optimization to speak of. They're starting to really pay attention to it. But in the meantime, what they've done is really focused on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is where they have focused because they're a B2B company, right? So they've focused there, and they've participated there, but they have come up with some killer content specifically for their target audience of CIOs and CTOs, so Chief Information Officers, Chief Technology Officers. So they've focused in, and they have some killer content, killer infographics, nice downloads, all of that, and they're talking about them starting discussions out on LinkedIn in specific groups where their target audience hangs out. And they had something like 364 visits in the last couple of months and 21 new leads generated from people who not only came in to consume their content and their blog content and some of the things that they've come up with, but also downloaded one of their calls to action. So that's a 6.4% conversion rate, and it's coming right out of social media because they're not getting the search engine optimization traffic. But what that speaks to isn't so much, it's yes, that's where they could find that audience, but B, their content. So now I'm underscoring that yet again, is the efficacy of your content. So what do you do here, and how do you really approach this well? And so we're going to now shift into talking about what is that Agile marketing mindset that's going to make the difference. And so there's some characteristics. An Agile mindset is open and forward thinking. So looking forward, they're looking to the future. Everything is propelling them forward. They're learning and continuously learning. They see opportunity. So what they're looking for is how could we do something better? How could we get to that audience more effectively? So there's this whole mindset. But they're smart. They're using data to help them really deliver the ideas, to help them really see and make the correlations that they need to make. But that data can't be in silos. That data has got to be coming to them in an integrated fashion that they can utilize. They consider their audience. And what we're talking here is niche. So niche it down. Across continuing education, you have all kinds of classes that cover the gamut. And so you've got to start to target and really consider your audience and what your message can be. And again, I'm going to do a foreshadow right here into content from the standpoint that your content, when it really does hit a target audience, you can go deep. When you go deep, guess what? That target audience is interested differently and engaged differently than when you come at it with really high-level surface sorts of things. So you want to consider your audience always. That's the whole thing you'll hear in the marketing talks everywhere is personas. Understand your persona. And then, as things can skew towards data, and you're really looking at, the data side of things because things are so data-driven, you've got to be creative as well. So you've got to bring in creativity here. It's not just about the data. It's about what headline can you generate that's going to really say what you need to say and get that attention. What's the content and the way that you present that content, write that content, come at it, that when your headline earns you into having them read that first sentence earns the second sentence, et cetera, and the first paragraph earns it, they're going to continue on to the second paragraph. So how do you do that, and what are those things that you need to consider? It's a whole other thing. The next thing is you're always testing. So every marketing initiative that you do, everything that you're doing is all testing. It's testing, and the data is going to give you more insights and correlations. So even if one initiative falls flat on its face, in the old mindset you'd go, well, that was a waste. In the Agile marketing mindset, you say, look what we learned. And now look what we can try here. Look what we can do there. So that's what you're doing. You're always testing, and everything fuels the forwarding of more effective marketing. So what that points to is that you're always able to improve. So what you want to know is that with an agile marketing mindset, you're learning new things, and you allow yourself to take some risks, and even if the risks don't pan out, they move you forward. Every time you do something, you learn, and you're opportunity focused, always moving forward. So failures, you could look at failures as the fuel for the next test, and successes are also that fuel. But in other words, everything is that fuel to move you forward. So what are the three critical components? Because given all the things you can do, there's three things we're going to have you focus on that's really going to make the difference. And this is out of working with literally, hundreds of small businesses and continuing education organizations that we've worked with as well, to really pull together, well, what are these things that really propel you forward, that can really take you to that next level of marketing and effectiveness with your programs. And again, what we're talking about here is your continuing education institution reaching self-sufficiency, so that maybe you don't have to be dependent on grants. Maybe, all of that, so you generate your own budget because you've got that sort of revenue coming in that can really fuel your organization and your initiatives. So the first thing is efficient. The second thing is fast. And the third thing is adapting. So these are the three components. Now we're going to put some meat on those bones. We don't want to overwhelm you. You can get overwhelmed by what's in front of you and say, oh great, if I had all the time in the world, sure I would do all this stuff. But we know that you're tight, stretched for time, you're small budgets, small staff. So what is it that's really going to push you into the realm where you can really be effective? So let's look at the efficient marketing measures results. So if you're efficient, you're measuring your results, and this gets right at the data. And integrated and organized data is the fuel of efficient agile marketing. So you want to focus on the information that adds value and provides insights, because at the end of the day, you have to be able to look at the data and tell a story with it, sorting through what's important and what you need to do. So how much information is available about the students enrolled in every course, and how easily does that information translate into marketing messages or tactics for you? I suppose that could have been a poll question. Had I thought about it, we could have asked you guys this. But at any rate, how much information is available to you? Well, think about it. Here I'm showing you direct results out of Genoo, looking at a set of students in Genoo that come across in real time when they register or when they sign up to be a member or a learner in Lumens. So when you look at this, cart purchase items is the classes they've registered into. So I can look at any group of students. So I could look at specific things, or people who clicked through a photography link, for example, or something like that, and I can say, all right, so what are all the classes that this set of folks have participated in? And I can start to see what all have they participated in. Then I can say, well, what categories of classes have they participated in? And then take it and say, what subcategory of classes have they participated in? And looking at this for a population of students can help me segment. And segmenting is really, really important, because it's what we want to get to. So personal is powerful. What makes your ability to, if there is a limitation shared by most organizations in pursuing email marketing success, if that's what you look at, or online marketing success, it's an inability to carefully segment and target your marketing based on meaningful distinctions. So understand your audience and target to specific interests. Again, here are the specific things that you're interested in. Behavior is the first one, intention is the second one, and frequency is the third one. So let's look at this. Behavior is the most significant information that online marketing should provide, and it's a way to directly track the interest that your marketing generates by ways of, say, click-throughs, website visits, downloads, all of that. So you want to be able to track behavior comprehensively. How often do they come back? What have they downloaded? What have they looked at? What have they registered into? So you've got all of that that you want to look at. And that allows you to understand and draw correlations and build different segments of your marketing, but it also you then understand and can then brainstorm really great content that will push them forward. So that's one piece of it. Intention is, how do you know what they intended? Let me give you an example. And some of you have heard this example before, but it's a good one for you guys. So Pierpont and Ron Weiss there, they thought that that personal enrichment and professional development were completely separate and distinct, never the twain shall meet. And as one of his first tests when he started with Genoo, he did a newsletter, professional development newsletter. And in there he had a place at the bottom right corner of the newsletter that was open, and he thought, okay, I'm just going to run a test. I'm going to put a sewing class in there, a personal enrichment class. And the second most clicked link in that email, as it turns out, was that sewing class. Now, that may be a bummer to a lot of you who think about professional development where courses cost thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars, versus a sewing class that might be $50 or $25, right? So, you might go, crap, what's the deal? We have all these great professional development courses. But here's the thing, what was the intention of those people who clicked? Because not one of them registered into that sewing class. Okay, so what was that intention? And because he could easily follow up and find out that intention, he could see that at least 3 people who clicked through sewing registered in a $3,000 grant writing program. Wow. Okay, so you look at that and you think, okay, now could you know that easily? Because most email metrics stop at the click. And you want stuff that goes way beyond that. You want to have data that really allows you to reach insights. The insight here being that, hey, maybe professional or personal enrichment classes are a gateway to professional development. Maybe when people get home and they're tired at night, they'll click through something they're interested in, and then as they're looking around, they'll start thinking, more about what's going to forward the action for them. So that's something that they could then play with and start to exploit, but it led to different sorts of content, different ideas for what would engage people. And then the third one is frequency. How often? Who are your most responsive? How often do people come back and visit is one measure of frequency. How often do they open your emails? How often? It's the often. It's the recency, frequency. And then it's, how frequently do they take classes from you? So there's that whole recency frequency, right? So you can do that sort of thing and look at and divide those into quintiles. The top % of people are, that 20% that deliver 80% of your revenue. It's those 20% that just love your courses and everything else. But and so you could send a lot of things to them to keep them interested. But if you go down into the middle quintiles or the lower quintiles, those are the people that, if you can figure out how to engage with them more readily so you can grow that top quintile or grow the overall reach so that you can grow that top quintile, then you start growing differently in your results and expanding your program. So understanding these things help you target, help you think about content, and that sort of thing. So that's one of the ways that you really want to look at to understand the data and be efficient in what you do with your marketing. So let's look at FAST. FAST is we call look while you leap. So not before you leap, but while you leap. And what does that talk about? Well, it talks about data really fueling what you're up to. So as you've got campaigns going on, and I'm just showing you a couple screen grabs here, you can see your most responsive leads, for instance. Can you? Do you know who's most responsive when you send an email out? Who are those people? And imagine if this was contract training and people were responding to some marketing emails that you're sending out to prove the case of why, why you guys are the best and what really is the benefit of workforce development or having a contract training initiative. Heck, you would be, if you were a salesperson in that regard, you'd really want to know, well, who are my most responsive? Are they sales ready? Do they have an opportunity? Can we get them a proposal? What can we do there? Understanding this lets you take action, lets you be efficient, lets you be effective. So these are the kinds of things that you want to be able to drive down to and you want to be able to look at. Because so as new marketing campaigns are rolled out, how does that impact, for example, visitors to your website? And if the numbers aren't where you'd like them to be, can you quickly intervene, do another test? So here's some things that we've been looking at with with interesting results on a variety of things, both in continuing education, but also in the sector of B2B organizations that we work with. And that is, you know, our inboxes get so full. We're starting to explore, you know, you send an email out. We've done this over the last several years in a variety of different ways. But when you send an email out, people either respond to it or they don't. And the majority, quite frankly, the majority don't even open your email. It's just deleted on entry, right? Or they don't even see it because they've got so much email coming in, it just glosses over for them. You know, it's just noise. So what we've started to experiment is either a week later or maybe even just a couple days later, sending another email to all the people who didn't open the first one or didn't open and click through the first one. And in many times what we've seen is better engagement the second time. And it's very interesting. So we did this in a B2B world. We did this specifically, and this one comes to mind, but we did this with an aftermarket product. So this one company that is a customer of Genoo's, they sell telecommunications equipment, headsets and phone systems, and they get all the way into the whole unified communications area, which is you know, major systems and applications. But they do this thing where it's just their aftermarket group just sells, you know, new headsets and new phones and old, you know, and refurbishes things and stuff like that. So at any rate, they had this. There's this really new, fancy Plantronics headset that is just, you know, you want one. Trust me, it can work with your cell phone and your office phone and everything, and switch between the two, and it's just got everything, every bell and whistle, and it's, you know, it's a Bluetooth deal. So they sent out an HTML-based marketing email to the people who have purchased headsets or purchased aftermarket products in the last year and a half. And they had them all set up, and they have a control group they're not sending anything to. But they sent this thing out. A week later, they sent another email. They sent them out from the salespeople. A week later, they sent out another email from the salesperson, and it was an email that looked like the salesperson had forwarded that email to them. And it was forwarded the first email to them, and just a real quick message, hey, wondering if you saw this, want to make sure you didn't miss it. They got more response off of that one, and this generated orders for them. So all we're saying is there's creativity here. When you know how to focus your marketing, you can think of different messages and ways of things that add value that you also want to tackle. So you want to be able to do that. Now, one example here is when your catalogs are sent out, imagine what you could do with data that told you more about visitors to the website that entered through a special landing page with a unique URL that only the catalog gave them. So you'd know that those were specifically from the catalog that you mailed. Imagine what that might tell you and who those people are. That would let you quickly measure the impact of the catalog to what the correlation is with online. So it's one idea. And then that fact might let you know that now is the time to try again with a follow-up direct mail piece or what have you, so that you can start to see what are the ways these things play together. So you can mix online and offline sorts of initiatives. So you want to be able to move, and you want to be able to be fast. You want to be able to get data and information that lets you draw those correlations and insights. You want it to be organized for you so that you can do some things quickly, like understand who your most responsive leads are with no fuss, no muss. That's going to have a small marketing team be more effective. All right, if there's one thing that you could invest in if you're not sure where to invest, that would be, I would recommend you invest in content. Why? Because content is everything in the new world of marketing. Specifically, you want to stop focusing on the content that you want to create, and you want to start focusing on the content your audience needs to read to be convinced to take action or to take a step closer to taking action. If your action is to register, is that end game action you want them to take? Well, what would be a halfway step in the middle? What are small yeses that you can get them to make, you know, that then lead to the yes of they're registered in a program? So one of the ways that we work with clients to do this is to design targeted content pathways that take readers down a path from curiosity to customer, that actually walk you right through that path. and we brainstorm with them. We have a whole way of doing this. But what we've seen is when you can design content that hits the mark with a targeted audience, and again, audience is critical to understand, but with a particular audience, the better results you can get. Because your content really needs to do 4 things. It needs to give the reader useful information they can't imagine not reading. Second, it needs to provide a solution to a real problem they face. Third, it needs to highlight the benefit of the classes, of your classes or a class, or indicate the problems that will be solved by taking those actions. And then lastly, it needs to be crafted so that it can easily be repurposed over time. So some of your content, I know, is because you have a class coming up and they need to register into it and it's time sensitive sort of things. But you have a lot of opportunity for content that isn't time sensitive, that can be used and can be set up and can be referenced over and over again to drive interest and drive and answer questions for people and really help them understand what it is that they could get out of engaging with your organization or taking that particular class. So you could start by asking yourself questions like, you know, what are the stories that you can start telling? What can you provide that is seen as valuable by your students or your prospects? How can you help them overcome a problem or solve an issue? How can you help them think about things differently? When the content is target, then it really can be adapted. And what simplifies the process is content that's targeted to an audience. Do you know what you want to say and who you want to say it to? When you can answer that, it makes your content generation that much simpler. Having a broad target makes it more high level. So when you're targeting broadly across a lot of different people or to an entire audience, you can only talk at very, very high generalized levels. And when you do that, you tune a lot of people out because they're not interested. It's like, oh, yeah, same thing. I've heard it a million times. Nobody cares. Nobody's interested. So, you know, in this case, what you want to do is you want to think about your target. So even if you have a specific target, you might come up with content that misses the mark. You know, one example is that I can recall is having people that you want to have take a little workshop to make a ceramic, something very easy in ceramics. Now, because you can target to everyone who's ever taken a ceramics or sculpting class from you, is that the right audience for taking what's much more of an entry-level ceramics class? Well, that mistargeting ended up causing that class to be canceled. But if you think about it and you really understand what audience you're after, you can target things correctly and get that much more effective at having people register into the classes. Another one is, you know, an example is a CE org that had a Six Sigma a set of things they were going to offer with a partner that had these classes, and they wanted to do a introductory or complimentary session. So they sent out an email for the complimentary session and nobody responded. So then then they came up with, we're going to do the white belt version of this now, and so let's put an email out that's just about that. And we worked with them on formatting that email and the headline and the whole thing, and they ended up having a 52% open rate, and they had, you know, over a dozen people register into that class. So that's the difference. That's the difference in how your content's formatted. That's the difference in the way that you think about how it's going to be received and what's really of value to those people, what's going to get their attention. So you want to be able to do those things, and when you can get the metrics and you can start to see those things, you can start to play. You can start to really focus, which is a critical thing to be able to move quickly and all that. You need that data and that integrated data and information that helps you focus and take action. So before I move, I'm going to back up a slide here because there's a little bit more I want to cover. So when you think about content on your website or your blog or your emails, what you want to do is you want to pull the reader along on a path. You want to pull them along from basic curiosity to seriously considering registration. And mostly what I see is content written ad hoc. Most continuing ed folks I've worked with, the content's really developed on the fly. It's like, okay, we need to do this, let's get it out the door. All right, boom, done, right? If you can start to be a little bit more thoughtful and you can start to see and act quickly, but and look at the data and then really target your content, then you can start to build a muscle, and that content can be evergreen. That content can work day in and year in and year out as you offer that set of courses or those sorts of things, because you're getting at basic sorts of things that benefits or the pain that particular stuff solves, or what it allows people to learn and master. You want to think about calls to action. I've seen, I've gone through working with enough CE organizations now to say that register now is not necessarily a strong call to action, or hiding your link so that it's not too obtrusive, also not necessarily good. You don't want to apologize for your marketing. What you want to do is hit the mark with your marketing, and you want to have people delighted that they know exactly what they should be doing and they do it. And so you want to really work on, from a content perspective, also making sure that your content is associated with really good calls to action. Okay, so the one thing that I want to say here, underlying all of this stuff, is the fact that, marketing is a profession. And for many CE organizations, it's a sideline. It's if I have enough time, I'll get to it. And so rather than say, hey, you really should hire marketers and all of that, because I know that there's budget constraints and real budget constraints that are there. Even Learn says in this, is taken right from Learn, invest more money in marketing. Look at marketing as an investment, not a cost. And if you do it that way, you can reap benefits and increase enrollments and income. Okay, enough said, right? But how do you really do that? You have the reality of your budget. You have the reality of what's so in your organization. And so one of the things is having outside eyes of a marketing expert can help you see things in a new way and take actions that you possibly wouldn't do otherwise. It can have you see content you can develop that you wouldn't even know to develop otherwise, because those outside eyes aren't in your world. So they can be more objective, and they can look at things. And having that expertise can go a long way to transforming what you've got available in your marketing and the results that you experience with your marketing. So tools alone, what we've seen in our experience is that tools alone don't do it. So it's not just about having the tools that give you the reports and the data. It's also about having access to thinking, having access to how you form an initiative or how you format an email or the content that you're writing that needs to hit that mark that's going to make the difference. So getting started is getting the right tools, organize your marketing data is what that should say, is marketing data, build a habit of agile marketing. Have it be continuous, have it be constant, have it be all the time you looking at how you can improve, and have access to great professional marketing advice and leverage it. So that's how we recommend you get started. Now, to that end, I will say that Genoo and Augusoft, we have put together marketing packages that provide integrated online marketing tools from Genoo, real-time integrated to your Lumens system. We've also built in, so it's not just a tool purchase that you're doing, it's actually a package that you're buying that provides and builds in the access to the marketing experts here at Genoo for specific initiatives that you can take on every quarter for your organization. So we have different packages you can pick from, but specific things that can really focus in and move you forward and be tailored directly to your organization. And they can be added, these packages can be added to your existing Lumens contract, so they can be included, it can be included in your annual renewal rather than being a whole nother big expense that you have to go get approval for and all of that and justify. You can roll it right into your Lumens contract. So with that being said, I'm going to open up here for any questions, and I do want to say here's the link to the white paper, the Future of CE Marketing white paper, and you can go to that link and you can download it. We will ask you for some information, but it's available to you to get there. So if you're interested, go out there and get that. And now I'd be happy to field any questions that you have. I know we've got a good amount of time for some questions, so Chris, I'll turn it over to you to see what questions are coming in.
Sure. We've got a few that have come in, but I just want to remind people that if you do have a question, please send that in now through the question box in the toolbar. And we've got about, looks like 20 minutes here, so we'll spend the whatever remaining time plus however many questions you have here answering those questions. So first question is kind of a question around measuring responsiveness, and we understand that you can measure responsiveness with email, but other ways to measure some of the other online stuff like social or SEO or some of those other types of online marketing?
Yeah. Yep, that's a great question. I think that, partly what is it that you want to measure out there? So we've worked with folks to measure, to participate on social, but that social has specific, like either they're posting things out on social that drive people into their blog. Mostly it's a blog that we see that people drive to, because that's going to be content that's going to engage and form a discussion. And so when you're out, say, on LinkedIn or you're in social, what's the purpose of it? Register now or buy now or whatever those kind of messages are don't generally work well to measure things. You're not going to get a huge response there. But when you can engage from the standpoint of, here's some really great information, then they come into the blog or to your article that you've got, and then you have really great calls to action right there. So now, and some of those could be to register into a course, because if they're going to consume this content, well, the next thing is going to be, of course, take this program or what have you. So I think it's the way in which you do it, and then your metrics will be right there. Your metrics in terms of, how much traffic are you getting from that particular source, from that particular social channel, and then of the traffic, where are they going, right? So you can answer that with Google Analytics, right? But where are they going, and then are they consuming anything of yours beyond that? Are they registering anything? Are they taking a download of something? But those are the things that you want to really look at, is what are you doing out there? Is it driving any measurable activity that you want? So you can measure followers, you can measure retweets, you can measure, all those sorts of things. But the truth is that what you want to measure, while those things can be interesting, do they drive to anything? And do they drive to any results that in the end is what you're interested in? So you want to start to devise a way to come up with how do you know what is your purpose? And that backs me up to, and I'll open up for another question here, but one more thing. That backs up to any time you write content, you should be asking yourself, what do I want the person who reads this, what do I want them to do out of reading this content? What do I want them to do? And I better have a good something for them to do, right? And if they don't do that, what other thing do you want them to do? So they don't do your primary thing, what else would you want them to do? And make sure you give them options, but you're guiding them, okay? So you're not just spewing content out there, but you're guiding them, okay? So that's, what else do we have? So that's the best way I know to answer that right now.
All right, we've got a few more questions that have come in. Kind of a twofold question here. One is, well, before I answer this one, I just want to let everybody know there's been a few questions about can we get copies of the recording and the presentation, and yes, we will be providing copies of both the recording and the presentation to everybody afterwards, as well as the link to the white paper, so we will get that out to everybody. Question about, you talked about the marketing and increasing marketing, and just kind of in a general rule of thumb, what % of budget should go towards marketing efforts, and also what are some ways to help convince administrators to invest more in marketing?
I would say I'm not sure what % of budget should be your marketing budget. I don't know what % of budget should be set aside for marketing, and I think that depends on how valuable you believe marketing to be. And the way to create value in marketing is to start producing some results in marketing that are things that you can point to as successes. So I think that you need to start with very distinct initiatives that you can then measure. So for example, and I'll go back to, I can go back in the CE world, I can go back to Pierpont, and I can say, okay, well, in the first 3 months, they learned some very valuable things, about how personal enrichment and professional development weren't worlds apart and shouldn't be kept separate. And secondly, they got a 2,500% return out of doing a in-person lunch and learn event that they completely had people sign up for on a landing page using a lead capture form, and the leads went right into Genoo. They could run the list out of Genoo, and they could run all the emails to follow up with people. So they did it in a very low overhead way, but they had 25 people attend. They could invite to this lunch and learn in a very targeted and segmented way so that they didn't lose money buying lunch for everybody. But then they had 12 people register into a $1,250 course, and they only spent $600 for the lunch. So those kinds of things start to build a case for what you can do. So you want to come up with initiatives that build the case, and you've got to prove marketing's effectiveness. You can request all day long, but if you aren't actually able to demonstrate the goodness that you've been able to do, you're not going to get more money to do it.
All right, thanks, Kim. And I do know that Learn also has some general formulas on marketing in terms of how much you should spend per class and per program, so you may check with them too. A couple of questions kind of regarding Genoo working as a CRM, and then also how it integrates with Salesforce. So first, does Genoo work as a CRM for contract training clients, and then also how does Genoo integrate with Salesforce and other CRM programs?
Right. So Genoo does have a small CRM we call SalesView, and that it works as a CRM. It's completely integrated with Genoo, and all the data within Genoo completely pulled in so that salespeople can find leads easily and quickly, and can record any notes, et cetera, et cetera. So yes, we do have one for small sales teams. Genoo is also in the App Exchange with Salesforce. Here's the rules about Salesforce, though. Salesforce requires, and this is a Salesforce deal, that you have the professional edition or higher of Salesforce in order to use any, truly good apps in their App Exchange. That's just their rule. They don't open up their smaller versions of Salesforce. Are not open for integration. So otherwise, we'd be writing to them because that's our market. But so we are in the App Exchange. We work with the professional edition or higher. We're just rolling out a new update to that, actually, that is in the process of getting approval out at Salesforce, but that will add even more features to it and some real-time things, and we have real-time push and pull of leads so that as you market to them, you can alert things over in your Salesforce in terms of campaigns and things like that. So yes, we do have our own CRM, and yes, we do integrate with Salesforce.com. And specifically, I will say this. You see my email address right there. If anybody wants to get more information about SalesView specifically, we have a really good online video that's only 2.5 minutes long that shows you, gives you a good bird's eye view of SalesView and what it has. And if you send me an email and just tell, I will send you back a link so you can go watch that, okay? Because that will also help, all right?
All right, another question on content and how, just in general, how much time do you recommend taking to write good content?
That is a very good question, because really great content people can, sometimes content comes together super quickly. Other times content you can struggle over it and labor over it, and it takes you a while to come up with it. So again, if you're tuned into your market, and this is where I just did a full curriculum. In fact, I have one more class to deliver before it's completely delivered to the Online Marketing Institute for their demand gen curriculum. It consists of 7 classes. The first one is all about personas. It's all about how do you really truly get in the head of your target audience. But I can tell you that content comes together much easier when you actually understand the mindset of your target audience and who they are and what their interests are. One of the ways that you can, so we're talking about how long does content take. I would say continuing education organizations and marketers in from what I've seen, do not leverage the resources you have available to you to produce really great content, and that is your instructor base. Your instructors are the experts in their subjects, and if you knew the kind of questions, you could come up with questions to ask them that would help before a class goes out, so that you could start to really, and even if they don't want to write, get them in a conversation and record the conversation and get it transcribed, and you have got well on your way to getting some good content that you could put into blog posts or what have you. So there's a whole host of things that you could do to make your content development much more streamlined. But again, how long does it take? Well, how good a writer are you? How good of an editor are you? You know, so it's different. It literally, with every organization I work with, it's a different answer.
Okay, another question we have about integration. This time it's more talking about how Genoo integrates with existing electronic tools such as a Constant Contact.
Genoo doesn't need to integrate with Constant Contact because Genoo takes the place of Constant Contact. Genoo has a full email marketing application within it. So we can do lead nurturing and drip campaigns as well as email marketing to broad campaigns. And the data that we give you back is better than what you can get out of Constant Contact. The data that you get back is all your standard email marketing data, but then we go beyond that to show you and track specifically what leads are doing beyond that click, which then gives you way more information and data. So Genoo replaces Constant Contact for those of you that have that.
All right, some other questions here kind of regarding metrics. Are there any specific metrics about the right types of marketing mix you should have, you know, web, email, social versus print and direct mail?
I'm sure that Learn probably has some statistics on this. I would say that, you know, it's proven that sending out a catalog, you know, doing direct mail works and online works, and I would say there are things that you do with direct mail, and the problem with direct mail is that it costs you a lot more to test than the online world costs you. So you can test your messages and your calls to action and stuff online, and then certainly you could look at doing some follow-up direct mail pieces based on the tests of your marketing messages online. I mean, that may be you know, one way that you could think about some of that. But I would say that online marketing can be super effective and super personalized. Email marketing is one of your most personalized and personalizable channels that you can use. It gives you your highest ROI, and it's higher than social. Social can't be personalized to the degree that email marketing can. Social is more of a one-size-fits-all. You send a message and everybody sees it. All your followers see it, and that sort of thing. Whereas with email, you can tailor and target and trigger email directly out to an audience of one, if that's what you had. And you can automate it so that you're doing it based on behavior and tracking. So email is different, and I would say that email has a very big place with what you're doing, and with most continuing education institutions, I think you guys would be canceling a lot more classes if it weren't for email. So, but the way you do email, I think, should be way more targeted than what I see coming out of most CE organizations when we first start working with them. And then the targeting really does start to drive a whole different way of thinking about your marketing and looking at your audience, and then that drives the way you develop your content. So I hope I answered that. I was a little bit around about that, but I think you're going to be doing, you know, email is going to be in there. I think your website and the pages that you have there and the landing pages and things are also very important because you drive to those with your email. Having, you know, Genoo right now, we're finalizing on a widget with Lumens so that you can have landing pages within Genoo that can pull classes based on certain characteristics directly out of Lumens and display them always updated. So you don't have to worry about that those pages get updated all the time. So you'll be able to bring those in and create some really compelling and easy to format, you know, landing pages. But, you know, so you want to look at those things. Now social, if you have a place that your folks hang out, or if you have a big follower base out on social media, start to see, well, what does that, are they sharing more widely than you? Does social help you expand your reach, or are they barely paying attention to what you say out there? So I would look at how engaged are you in the social media realm, and then try and focus it to the extent that you can.
All right, we have another question here that's kind of talking about if there's any samples or behavioral preferences that you've found in terms of the best way to time offers or just best ways to reach particularly a CE audience, if there's anything in particular you've noticed or found in some of your work.
In terms of reaching a CE audience, I think that you need to test. I mean, certainly B2B you aren't going to send on a weekend, and CE you can totally send on weekends, and sometimes you have higher open rates when you do so. You know, one of the things that I think is, you know, you have to test with your audience. So you can come up with, you know, maybe there's benchmark data that says, you know, the best time to send is Tuesday at a particular time. And what you do know for certain as soon as that information is published, that that's not your best time to send. Because that's the silver bullet that everybody's looking at, and then everybody sends at that time, and it ends up not being the best time. So I would say what you're going to learn about your audience will be for you. Like what Pierpont learned about their audience was that, you know, people were interested in personal enrichment, and they would respond to personal enrichment messages, but that also drove interest in their professional development courses. So, and there are certain insights that they could play with there and certain content that they played with there, so they ended up doing a better job of even filling their personal enrichment classes. But they also drove more engagement in their professional development. So again, timing of messages, I think that, you know, gosh, a few years ago people used to swear, no, you can only send to people once a month. I did a test where I sent an email out every single day, and I had people opt in for this, where I would send an email out every day with something of value about marketing and online marketing and that sort of thing. And I vowed to myself that I would write one every day. I wouldn't pre-write these things. So it was sort of a test to see whether you can really generate content that regularly when you're also busy flying across country and doing all these, you know, all the things that I do. And I made it every day except for one day, darn it. And one day I couldn't do it. I got out of meetings on the West Coast at about 7 o'clock at night, and it was already, you know, 10 o'clock at night on the East Coast, and I thought I've already missed any window I have to get that message out. But at the end I did a survey, and I asked people that participated in this test whether, you know, whether it was too frequent, less frequent, what would make the difference in frequency for them. And to a person, what they said was if they were interested in the content, they could take emails very frequently. If they're not interested in the content, they don't want the email, right? So it's very interesting, but people are open to receiving emails on a very frequent basis if it's an area and something that they're super interested in learning about or hearing about or getting their arms around. So, so from a frequency basis standpoint, you can play with that with your audience, and that's what we've been encouraging our CE customers to start to play with is don't just send an email once and you're done. Design it so that you can send it, and then you can change different aspects about it and send it to the people who didn't open it, or the people who didn't click through, or what have you, and really test out, you know, what you get there. And we've been seeing some interesting responses there, and many times the second email gets better response than the first one did.
All right, that looks like all the questions we have at this time, and it is 2 o'clock, so I think it's probably time to wrap things up, as I know people need to probably get back to doing other parts of their day. Jim, I know you've got a few things on the page here you wanted to point out to people, and so if there's any other things you want to do to wrap up, please go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to thank you so much for your listening. I have a very good soft spot. I have learned to I just love continuing education programs and working with y'all, and so to that end, we really work to develop a package and different packages with our Lumens integration that would really have marketing work at continuing ed organizations. So to that end, I can't wait to get more continuing education customers and work with you guys. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to email me directly or reach out to Lumens and Augusoft, and I'm sure that we'd be happy to help you in any way that we can.
Great. Thanks very much, Kim, for taking the time to present such a great webinar for us today. It was a lot of really good material, and as I mentioned to a few people through the chat room, we are going to be sending out a follow-up email to everybody that will include a copy of the webinar presentation and a link to both the recording today as well as the link to where you can get the white papers. So look for that in the next day or so. So with that, I think we're ready to sign off. So thanks everyone for signing in today, and have a great rest of the day.